Now the first thing we're going to do is we're going to figure out what kind of a yield we're going to get.
Okay, do a little cutting here.
The 3.26 pounds is a little over 52 ounces. When we unpackage it, we've got about 50 ounces of actual meat before it's boned. As frustrating as it is, the discrepancy between the actual weight of the meat before and after the packaging, it's just the producers, the manufacturers, the packagers, the meat companies ripping you off. The meat is usually wet and it's very often injected with broth, and that soaks into the pads that they put underneath. By the time you remove those, you're really not getting what's actually on the price tag. There's not any way around it that I know of, and it's going to stay this way for as long as we are walking this planet. Boning meat is not difficult. Anybody can do it. Key to boning meat is to have a good sharp boning knife. Doesn't have to be an expensive knife. That knife that I'm using right there is probably $10 or $12. But as long as you keep it sharp, it'll do the job. Remember that more people are hurt with dull knives than sharp knives. As you can see on my left hand right now, I'm wearing a boning glove. It's not a bad habit to get into. It can save you getting some minor nicks. It can save you getting some serious cuts. One thing about a sharp knife is when you do hit it, it's going to do some damage. When you buy a knife, also buy a stone, flat stone, and get yourself a good steel. That way you can keep your knife in tip-top shape, and as any tool, keep it in good shape and it's going to treat you good. Little story as an example, I knew a fellow who was boning some fish. It wasn't meat, poultry, but just cleaning some fish. He happened to be an eye surgeon, and he put one heck of a gash in his thumb, and there was a question as to whether he was going to be able to operate again. So he did. It came out fine, but always think of things like that. I now fillet it down into friable portions and divide it up. I usually cook for 2 people at a time, so I divide it up into separate portions with what I think we'll eat for a meal. And out of that 3 pounds of chicken, the 2 pound of yield that we got out of it, I end up with 3 very nice dinner portions for 2 people, which amounts to about $1 a dinner to feed 2 people. Now as we get to the end, we've got our meat filleted, we've got it skinned, we've got pure chicken, boneless, skinless chicken breast. Let's figure out what we've got. Okay, we've got 31.6 ounces. We started out with 50 ounces, if you recall, so we've got about a 40% loss. That's 2 pounds of boneless, skinless chicken for $2.90, $1.45 a pound. See you find that in the store. If you do find one, you're going to be standing in a long, long line. I have a nice food vacuum system. I use it sometimes. It's a little more expensive than just popping some things in a Ziploc, but if you're going to keep something long term, it is an advantage to it. Years back when I was young, you could buy chicken breast, and you could take an individual chicken breast and pound it out to make it into a cutlet. Nowadays, the chicken breasts they sell must come off 17-pound chickens, and these things couldn't fly if they wanted to. It's really kind of sad, but it's more profitable with the food additives and things like that to just grow enormous chicken less work, more meat, more yield, and more profit. If you took a chicken breast nowadays, the way they come in the stores, and you pounded it out, by the time you got done, you'd have a cutlet about the size of a 22-inch pizza. Okay, now we're going to start turning it into dinner. A little flour in a bowl. Toss the chicken, dredge it into the flour. I just pick the chicken up, dump the excess flour off, put it back in the bowl. I scrambled up a couple of eggs, season it with a little salt and pepper, dump the eggs right over the chicken, mix it all up, and it's ready to drop in the fryer. I use one bowl. A lot of people will do a dredging system with multiple bowls and tell you you have to use this hand for that and this hand for the other thing and whatever. I just whip through it and only have to clean the one bowl. Tells you where I'm coming from. Let's be honest, I'm not a purist chef, and I'd probably drive one crazy with all my shortcuts and changes to recipes and things like that. I like to make things easy, I like to make things inexpensively, but in the end, I like to have them come out tasting good. I've been cooking so long, I never measure. I don't know, some people should. I guess they just don't have the knack, but it's just something I've always been able to do is skip the measuring part. The only time I measure is if I'm baking. And when you're baking, measurements are crucial. One thing that drives me absolutely crazy is when you look at a recipe and it's got 27 different ingredients. I've got a really, really well-stocked kitchen. And I look at a recipe and I don't have 13 of the ingredients. It just doesn't make any sense that you should have to go shopping just to put dinner on the table. I mean, really, if you're making fish chowder and the recipe calls for a teaspoon of bonito flakes, who's got bonito flakes or where do you find them? We are not trying to finish this all the way through. We're just giving it some color on the outside, congealing the egg. But this is going to get baked with a sauce, which is going to make it so tender it'll melt in your mouth. So don't worry about it being cooked all the way through. Okay, so let's start making some sides. We're going to do an Armenian rice pilaf and some basic asparagus in lemon butter. I'm going to chop up our onion. Pretty simple. A few mushrooms. Now, this is a recipe that I got from a little Armenian lady, about 35 years ago. I've used it quite a bit throughout my life. I find it's one of the best rice pilaf recipes that I've ever come across, and it's really easy to do. It doesn't take any special ingredients or cuisine training. Ingredients above and beyond your basic rice is chicken broth and sauteed onions, sauteed mushrooms, and I throw in a little thin spaghetti. Today I actually used angel hair, but you'll see the effect, and it makes it a little fancy. You're never supposed to cut the ends off the stalks of the asparagus. You're better off to break them. I'm not really sure why. It's just been something that I've been trained to do all my life, so I continue to do it. That phone's ringing. Must be Emerald Lagasse. He wants his knife back. If you ever go into a commercial kitchen, you'll always find that on the back of the stove is a pot of water boiling. And boy, I'll tell you, it's handy to use. Nobody wants to sit and wait for water to warm up, and if you need to push something really fast, it's always handy to have that water pretty much on a rolling boil before you actually get to the point where you really need it. I do the same even in home cooking. It's always handy. You might have 4 dishes going. Rather than wait for 4 different pots to boil, you have one big pot of water in the back, and you work from that. Can you tell how carefully everything's measured? You know, a chunk of this, a lump of that. It's just something that you get used to doing. And these aren't measurements that are really crucial. They're not going to affect the outcome of the meal. I do use a North Swiss commercial grade base. It's available: chicken base, clam base, beef base. I've been using it for 35 years. I find it's the best base available. You don't see it in stores. You will see it in some type of culinary shops, but it's absolutely a wonderful base. It's getting hard to find. I used to be able to buy it at Cash and Carry in Hartford. I don't live in Connecticut anymore. You have to get it off Amazon. It's a little over $50 for 6 containers. Each container makes 5 gallons of stock. Probably 4 gallons by my standards because I make it a little stiff. But it's the greatest base on the market as far as I'm concerned. We got the basis of our rice pilaf going. We sauteed off our onions and mushrooms. Added a little chicken base. And we put in our thin spaghetti, angel hair spaghetti. We're going to saute that off. The general measurement for rice is 2 to 1. I go a little less than that. I go 1 to probably 1 3/4. I think it comes out a little bit moist when you use 1 to 2. I always find the result is pretty satisfactory. Adding a little lemon juice to our Francaise sauce. Francaise sauce is chicken base, chicken broth, a little lemon, a little white wine, half of the sauce, half of the chef, and butter. Just gonna swap burners because I get a little more heat out of the right front. You gotta get to know your stove. They all work different. Burners all work different. If you're into cooking, the only way to go is gas. Whether it be natural gas or propane. I just can't imagine trying to cook on an electric stove. They're so slow. With gas, you turn the heat down, it's instantly down. You turn the heat up, it's instantly up. Now that chicken we sauteed off in the flour and egg mixture, we actually did that yesterday. We're now going to take it out. We're going to put it in a different pan, put it in a Pyrex pie plate so we can put it in the oven and bake it. We're going to pour our sauce over it and cover it with tin foil and just let it steep. It doesn't take long. It's pretty well completely cooked before we even put it in that pan, so you're really only looking at about 15 minutes. We've got our pilaf ingredients all cooked down, the mushrooms, the thin spaghetti, and the onions. They're all sauteed. Now we're going to add our rice. When you put that rice in, you want to stir it in. We've got butter in the bottom of the mixture, and we want to coat that rice very, very well with the butter. We add our water, again, 1 3/4 to 1. Water's going to be hot when you put it in. You don't want to put cold water in, obviously. And we're going to cover it up, put it on the back burner, on the low, and just let it sit for about 30 minutes. Just added our Francaise sauce to our chicken. We'll cover it with tin foil, pop it in the 350 oven. I'm not going to move the camera to show you the oven. I think you all know what an oven looks like. Mine looks about like everybody else's. Maybe a little dirtier, but as I got to put this thing together, I was reviewing it and I realized that I did not put the chicken base into the rice pilaf on camera. I did it on the side and didn't realize that the camera wasn't running. But you do add a little chicken base to that rice pilaf. You can either add it into the stock or you can add it after you've poured the hot water into the rice. But it is a stock, not just plain water. Looks like our asparagus is just absolutely perfect. You want to get that into cold water as quickly as possible so we keep the bright green color. It's my favorite vegetable. I don't think you can beat asparagus. Asparagus is cooled. Gonna put it back in the pan, add a little butter to it, a little bit of lemon juice, and it's all set to serve. What a classy vegetable. Want to really kick it up a notch, as Emerald would say. Serve it with a little bit of hollandaise. But that's a whole video right there, how to make hollandaise. Maybe we'll do that sometime. I don't know why I didn't pick up a lemon today. I was in the store. But reconstituted lemon juice works fine. I've always been a firm believer that when food is sent to the table, it should already be seasoned properly. People should not have to immediately reach for a salt or pepper shaker. So I do season it. I have to be careful with salt. First of all, I'm kind of a saltaholic, so I have a tendency to oversalt. I have to be careful. But you also want to be careful because salt is one of the main ingredients in your chicken base, your stocks. So remember that that's going to automatically salt the product without you picking up a salt shaker. So take that into consideration. There's a rule of thumb that you should never use any wine in a kitchen that you wouldn't drink. So in the event that you use a cooking wine, you also have to take into consideration that that cooking wine is loaded with salt. They do that so people won't drink the cooking wine in the kitchen. So also, if you use cooking wine, take that into consideration, that you're salting your product at the exact same time. Another thing about cooking wine as sold in a store is by salting it, they basically make it undrinkable, and therefore it doesn't come under the guidelines of selling alcohol, no matter what your state guidelines are, whether it be no alcohol sales on Sunday or have to be in a package store or whatever. This gets by so it can be sold in a grocery store. I'd say we're about ready to plate up. Remember that people eat with their eyes as well as their stomachs. So whenever you send a dish out, it should be as pleasing to the eye as it is to the taste buds. It's very, very important. Boy, that looks good, and it's going to taste even better. Now you look at that rice. Moist, flaky, it's not all sticky, just as luscious as it can possibly be. Perfect rice. I pre-package a lot of meals for the freezer, and this is a perfect example. And we use disposable containers. We don't dispose of them. We get 3, 4, maybe more uses out of them. But we pack these away, and you've just got the best TV dinner that you're ever going to get. You're not going to buy this for $2 from Swanson's. This is real cooking. And pop it away in the freezer, and sometime when you want a nice meal but you don't feel like cooking, you just grab this thing, let it thaw, put it in the microwave, and in about 5 minutes you get yourself a fantastic meal. On this particular meal, the only thing I would probably change is I find that asparagus does not freeze well. So I probably use a broccoli or corn or something a little bit different to get a better product after it's taken out of the freezer. But that's just a small thing. Isn't that just the most beautiful rice you've ever seen? Follow those directions, it'll come out like that every single time. Bon appetit!